All right, what's going on? What's going on? Thursday. What was the draft a week ago? So it's time to try to get rooted in reality and really look ahead to what you can reasonably expect going into 2025. This is Dog Food Radio. I am your host, Jarrell, and I know we got a Fanatical L show coming up in about 40 minutes or so. So we're gonna try to talk a little game, and then we're gonna get right into the show with the rest of the crew. Now, a couple things I want to talk about. Let's start with Nick Chubb. If Nick Chubb isn't signed, you're probably going to have a situation where you're going to have a potentially a locker room problem because I posed it in the group chat to the rest of the fellas, and essentially, who's going to be your locker room leadership if you let Nick Chubb walk? Because I don't think Kevin Stefanski has the type of presence, has the type of leadership, and you've seen it. You've seen it for 5 years. You've seen the Baker Odell Beckham fiasco. You saw the Jadavion Clowney, Miles Garrett issue. You know, as a coach, you're supposed to nip that. You're supposed to have control over that. I mean, obviously, you got a lot of egos in the locker room, different things, but it seems like every season there's some sort of gripe that somebody has, and then it comes out later. Obviously, you saw the Miles Garrett world tour when he went on and talked about he wanted to be traded. A lot of that to me is coaching. You know what I'm saying? Because again, it happens from time to time. I know Lamar Jackson had that same situation, but those are contract disputes. Some of those other things that I mentioned weren't necessarily contract disputes. They were actually locker room issues. So if you have a situation where they decide to blatantly let Chubb go and take the fan favorite piece out of it. Just take the fact that he pretty much been there since the ascension to a couple of playoff berths. He's been there for that. He's one of the few people from that core, I think from John Dorsey's draft, that's still there. And Andrew Berry and them, they don't really have a lot of loyalty to them. I'm really surprised that Miles Garrett got a contract extension because he's only like that with his draft picks. And you see how they're treating Chubb. Chubb, he wants to come back. I don't know if he's going to take a discount, but he wants to come back. And when you talk about how he got hurt, that injury pretty much probably changed the trajectory or the course of his career. And they're willing to just let him walk out the door. Again, I understand it's a business, but at the same time, there has to be some sort of cohesion and some sort of loyalty with a player or two. And I feel like if anybody's a candidate for that, it's Nick Chubb. So obviously, I know it's some news that the Bears might try to sign him. I mean, if he walks, that's better than him going to the AFC North. But I still think it's a shame if Barry and them let him walk. And let's see here. So now that the draft is over, let's get to reality and let's really take a look and let's forecast what 2025, what the season could potentially be. Now, in 2023, you had them go 11-6, and then last year they went what 3-14. So you got a big variance of 8 games or so. So that's a pretty wide gap. Now Flacco is coming back, and again, I'm not really a supporter of Andrew Berry. I'm definitely not a supporter of Kevin Stefanski. I really don't think they know what they're doing because why would you not take the Deshaun Watson ego thing out of it? And I don't know that that was ever confirmed. But who cares if his feelings are hurt if you bring back Flacco? You saw how the offense ran, how the offense clicked with him. Why would you let him walk if it's to placate the feelings of another player? Let's flip that to this most recent draft. You drafted Dylan Gabriel, but you didn't care about his feelings in drafting Shador Sanders. So I don't understand if it's about the feelings of one quarterback allegedly and then you decide to make a move and let somebody walk. But then in the next draft, you draft one quarterback because you felt like he was higher on the board or whatever their logic was. Then you go and draft another quarterback. Doesn't really make any sense. So now you bring him back Flacco. And everybody is saying, well, Flacco, the offense looked good under Flacco, blah, blah, blah. Flacco Mania is back, all that. You bring in Kenny Pickett, whatever. I think most people would probably, if he was betting money, most people would probably say that Flacco is going to be the starter. I would probably be one of those people. Me personally, I would go with one of the rookies. But let's just say Flacco is the starters just for, kicks and giggles. Let's take a look, and we've talked about it a little bit, but I don't know that we've talked about it from this aspect because 2023 really was a fluke. They really got lucky if you really think about how they won some of those games. 49ers missed a field goal. I think the Bears wide receiver, he dropped a pass in the end zone. So there was a couple of games where if you're talking about coin tosses, they could have went either way. But really want to focus on when Flacco came to the rescue, if you will, and really put that into its proper context. Now, if you're new to the dog food show, I have said just about every show that Kevin Stefanski has never had a passing offense ranked higher than 19th. That's a fact. That's as an offensive coordinator and as a head coach. You can go look that up. He's never had an offense higher than 19th. All right. Now, when Nick Chubb, when you're talking about, I want to say 2020, 2021, 2022, when Nick Chubb was at the height of his powers, the running game was in the top 10 all of those years. And I want to say a couple of those seasons, it was top 5, if not top 3. So Stefanski's passing success has always been predicated on having a strong running game. I don't even think he would dispute that. So obviously Nick Chubb gets injured. Doesn't look like he's really the same player, but whatever. To me, he's still one of the top premier Browns just in terms of name, just in terms of what he does for the locker room. I think he should still be a part of the team because of that. But whatever, I don't make the decisions. So 23, that's the season Nick Chubb gets hurt, and I think after the Ravens game, they are 6-3, 6-4, something like that. So let's go ahead. Let's see if we can get the screen pulled up here. See, share screen. Let's allow that. Let's go window. I think we right here. All right. So let's go to that. All right. So I got the 2023 schedule. I'm on ProFootballReference.com. Great reference for stats and statistics, things like that. So win at Cincinnati. Joe Burrow, 24-3. Y'all remember that game? Good game. Pittsburgh game, they lose. That's the Nick Chubb injury. Then they win at Tennessee, lose at Baltimore, beat San Francisco, beat Indianapolis, lose to Seattle, blow out Arizona, beat the Ravens. All right, so now you're getting into, like I said, I think they're 6-3. So now you're getting into the back half of the schedule. So you got the DTR game. They win 13-10. Again, you hold any team to 10 points. That's largely because of your defense. And we know defense is not this team's problem. Then you go to Denver, lose 29-12. I think DTR got hurt that game. I can't remember if Flacco played that game. I don't think he did. But so now let's go to the Rams. Let's go to the Rams game. And I believe their quarterback was who? Was it Matthew Stafford? Let's take a look here. Forgive me, I'm jumping all over the place. So yeah, Matthew Stafford. Let's go ahead and highlight that on the screen if you're watching. Got Matthew Stafford right here. Went 22 of 37, 279 yards, 3 touchdowns. Flacco went 23 of 44, 254 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 INT. Let's go ahead and get that off the screen there. And pretty much a blowout. They lose 36-19, and it drops you down to 7-5. Now, this next stretch, this is what everybody talks about. All right. Now they play Jacksonville, Trevor Lawrence. They win 31-27. Again, you got to give them credit for winning that game. Not going to take nothing from them. That puts them to 8-5, and Jacksonville was also that would have dropped them down to 8-5. So they was a pretty solid team that season. I think their defense was bottom half. I'm not going to look it up, but I'm pretty sure that they were. Flacco had a good game. 26 of 45, 311 yards, 3 TDs. 1 interception. Trevor Lawrence. Say what you want about him. Some people think he's a scrub. I think he's average. Some days he can be above average, but we can probably all agree he's not Joe Burrow. He's not Lamar Jackson. He's not Patrick Mahomes. He's not Josh Allen. He's not in that tier. So we'll say average quarterback that they beat to go to 8-5, keep the season alive. Now, this next stretch of 4 games, if we really being honest, the defense did their thing, but if we being honest, let's look at the quarterbacks. Okay, you got Justin Fields. They win that game 2017. Justin Fields is a quarterback. Does anybody think Justin Fields is better than Trevor Lawrence? Again, I don't know. That's debatable. Maybe on certain days, I don't really know. They're probably about the same. I would maybe give Lawrence the edge just from a pure QB standpoint. Obviously, Justin Fields has the athleticism piece, and he's good. Some games he plays phenomenal. But let's be honest, that wasn't a top 10 quarterback that they faced. They win that game 2017. Again, look at what your defense is doing. Holds them to 17 points. Now, the Houston game, I don't know if y'all remember, but if my memory serves me correctly, CJ Stroud didn't play that game. They played against Davis Mills and Case Keenum. So if we really being honest, and that's the game that Amari Cooper went crazy, Joe Flacco went crazy, 368 yards. Again, we got to give them credit because they won the game. But they didn't go against Houston with all their top horses. And we know what happened in the playoffs. I think it's largely because they went into that Houston game with the same game plan, didn't really make any adjustments, and that's why they got blown out. I'm not in the locker room, so I don't really know. But that, I mean, let's just keep it 100. Davis Mills, Case Keenum, that's not top 20 quarterback play, if we being honest. All right, so that's a win. Keep the season alive, and then you play the Jets on a Thursday night. Who is their quarterback? Trevor Siemian. Come on now. Let's keep it. We got to keep it 110% about that coach of the year. That's why I think that particular Stefanski coach of the year is extremely fraudulent because they didn't beat nobody down the stretch. They didn't beat no real quarterbacks down the stretch. So again, you got to give them credit for winning the games, but it's not a coincidence that when they got to the playoffs, they get smoked when they play a real quarterback. I think most people would put CJ Stroud in the top 10. All right. So Trevor Siemian. And again, Joe Flacco did his thing, 19 of 29, 309 yards, 3 TDs, 121.2 passer rate. Again, can't take nothing from him. But again, that defense was playing well that season. You're going against Trevor Siemian, whatever. All right. And then I believe the Cincinnati game, it didn't matter. So that's kind of irrelevant. But that gets you to 11-6. But before we move on, let's go back a little bit earlier in the season. The Indianapolis game. They win that game by a point. If y'all remember, Kevin Stefanski gets it down to the 7-10 yard line. He's dialing up pass plays instead of running the ball. They might have been on the 2 yard line. Let's take a look at who that quarterback was. And I believe it was the great Gardner Minshew. No disrespect to Gardner Minshew. Solid. Again, below average, but he's solid. All right, 15 to 23, 305 yards. Again, that's not a top 10 quarterback. I would argue that's not a top 15 quarterback. Now they win that game. Again, you got to give them credit for that. Now, obviously, San Francisco game, that was a missed field goal, but hey, they won that game. Tennessee, that was Ryan Tannehill. It was on a bit of a decline then. And then obviously you had Joe Burrow. So they beat Joe Burrow. We'll throw Brock Purdy in there. Lamar Jackson. So you're talking about 3 games they won that particular season against, we'll say, top 10 quarterbacks. No, I don't think anybody would consider Kenny Pickett a top 10 quarterback, Ryan Tannehill a top 10 quarterback, Gardner Minshew a top 10 quarterback. Who was the quarterback in Seattle this season? I don't know if it was, what's the guy name? Geno Smith. Was it Geno Smith? No, it was Geno Smith. Is Geno Smith, is he top 15? He's probably fringe, right? But they lost that game, so it doesn't matter. PJ Walker is the quarterback. Now again, PJ Walker was your quarterback. Yeah, okay. You can maybe give him a little bit of a pass on that. You're down to your third string quarterback for them to even be in that game. Again, that's a testament to the defense. But all right, you blow out I don't even know if Kyler Murray even played that game, 27-0. And then obviously you had the one game Deshaun Watson went crazy. And that's Kenny Pickett again. And then we already went through these right here. So 3 top 10 quarterbacks. All right, let's pause real quick. We're going to pause for a break, and then we're going to come back. We're going to try to wrap it up. All right, so 2023 season, we took a look at that, 11-6. Now, by my estimation, I could be wrong, but by my estimation, I only saw 3 top 10 quarterbacks that was faced. Okay, Let me see. I got the schedule somewhere. Let me see if I can find that real quick. We'll skip 24 real quick. Let's pull up 2025 Cleveland Browns schedule. And let's see how many top 10 quarterbacks they have coming up on the for this particular season here. I want to try to find like a visual of it. Give me 1 second. My apologies. All right, this looks like the right one. Okay, here we go. Yeah, this looks right. 2025. Yeah. All right, so let's pull that up one time. And got 24 of y'all. Really appreciate that. All right, let's see here. Share screen. Let's go window. Let's go here. Okay. Let's no thanks on that. All right. So now we're not going to look at the offenses. We're not going to look at the defenses. We only going to look at the quarterbacks that you got to face going into 25. And again, this is all about what type of season can you expect. I mean, the draft was exciting, all that. All right, cool. Now you got to get back to reality and not buy this hope that they selling. And you got to get realistic about what you're going to expect. Are you going to see something closer to an 11-6 win team, or are you going to see something that's along the lines of a 3-14 team? Right off the bat, you got the Buffalo Bills. That's Josh Allen. That's a home game. Is he top 10? So that's one. You got Jordan Love, Green Bay Packers. That's at home again. We'll say that's two. You got Tua coming into town. I think he's friends. So let's just for the sake of that, let's leave Tua off of that. You got the Vikings. I think they're rolling with JJ McCarthy, so we're gonna say no on that. You got Brock Purdy coming back. Man, we're gonna go ahead and put some respect on him. We're gonna say that's three. You got Cam Ward. He hadn't really done nothing yet, obviously, so we don't know where we can rank him. And then you got Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow. That's 5 games right there against top 10 quarterbacks. All right, let's go to the away schedule. You got Caleb Williams. He hasn't done enough to be considered top 10 yet, so we'll say that's a no. Jared Goff. I think he's fringe. Again, I think he's kind of in that Tua Tagovailoa. That's probably a toss up, but for the sake of argument, we'll leave him up out of there. I don't know who the Raiders quarterback is going to be, so that's a whatever. Drake May for the Patriots. He's not top 10. The Jets, they don't have a top 10 quarterback. And then you get back to Lamar and Burrow again. So at that count, you're talking about 7 top 10 quarterbacks that you're going to face next season. Now, I'm not saying all 7 of them are going to be losses because obviously they've retooled the defense. But this schedule is on paper, and again, this is assuming nobody gets hurt or any of that. On paper, you're gonna have some problems to deal with. And even if I left off Tua, that would be 8. I left off Jared Goff, that would be 9. We don't know what Cam Ward is going to be. We don't know how Caleb Williams is going to play. So you potentially talking about 10 to 11 top 15 quarterbacks on the schedule. You got to be honest. This team had a problem scoring points last season in the 3-14 season, and we kind of running up on time. So I'm not going to bore you with some of the stats and statistics from last season, but y'all watch them games. It was a struggle for them to move the ball down the field. It was a struggle for the offense to score more than 14 points sometimes. Some of them games last season, if they could have got to 21 points or 24 points, they win them games. So they win some of those games. So you're talking about somewhere in the range of 7 to 9, give or take, top 10 quarterbacks where even if your defense is playing phenomenal, you're not going to hold all 7 or 8 of them to no 14 points. That's probably not going to happen unless Mason Graham and Miles Garrett are just out of this world. Now that's a possible. That's possible. Anything really can happen. And I trust Jim Schwartz to maybe be able to make that happen. But the problem is that if your offense is having 3 and outs or they can't move the ball down the field and can't even play the position game to where your pass rush can have an effect on the game, then it really doesn't matter because Josh Allen, Jordan Love, Brock Purdy, and I think they lost Deebo Samuel, but Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, they're gonna find a way to put points on the board if you keep giving them chances. If your offense can't move the ball up and down the field, so you know, I would argue right now, as it's currently constructed, that offensively, you probably don't have enough to get you, as it stands again. You could have some free agent signings, you could have some trades. It's a lot of things that can happen between now and week one. But if they make minimal moves, if they don't get any type of explosive receivers in the passing game, you're probably going to watch something similar to what you watched last season, even if the defense is phenomenal. Now, the wild card that you have is if Shador Sanders, and we'll throw Dylan Gabriel in there. The wild card is if any of these two rookies that you drafted come in and they actually elevate the offense. If you think back to Tom Brady when he had Chris Hogan, and I mean Julian Edelman is good, but there was another guy that they had that I'm thinking of. I can picture his name, Brandon LaFell. I think he really didn't have elite all-star receivers, but he still found a way to elevate the play of the offense. You could have a situation where maybe your rookies come in and do that. That's the only wild card where maybe they can overcome some of the shortcomings of the offense. And the young backs, it's a lot of stuff you don't know. You don't know what you're going to get out those young backs, right? But you've seen Kenny Pickett. You kind of know what his ceiling is. You've seen Joe Flacco. You know what you're going to get out of him. He's a gunslinger, a little bit of a wild card. He's going to throw some pick sixes. You know what you're going to get out of him. Your defense, his defense is probably going to be closer to top 10, I hope. That's what you would hope when they drafted that defensive tackle, that you're going to have a defense that's closer to top 10, at least definitely in stopping the run. Because if you can stop the run, you can make the opposing offense, a little bit more one dimensional. But the common denominator, and I'll wrap on this, the common denominator in all this is Kevin Stefanski's play calling. And I'll ask you, when have you watched a Kevin Stefanski called game and you said to yourself, wow, the passing game is clicking today? When have you seen that? I would love to know that. Because when they had Odell Beckham Jr. and Jarvis Landry, it never really took off the way that it should have. Again, I think he's only had one 400-yard passer. And that was Jameis Winston. And he wasn't even calling the plays. So again, you can't go off of the way they talk about the offense sometimes. It's like Bitcoin or crypto. And it's like, oh, well, this coin has all this potential. And you can't really go off of that. You got to go off of what you've already seen. Guy I used to work for. When he got to the league, he said, it don't matter where you was drafted. It don't matter where you went to school. It's can you play or can you not play? That's what it comes down to. And I don't really trust Stefanski being able to evaluate talent because the 5 years he's been here, who has he developed? I'll wait, especially offensively. Who has he developed? Who has he made a star offensively? Because I've seen a lot of people be brought in and then be shipped out, and then they blame the offensive production on said player. They talk about how the offense was changed for Deshaun Watson and that he was the reason that it didn't work. And then even last year, how they changed it, and that's why they brought in Ken Dorsey. But you hear all the time, they changed the offense for Jalen Hurts. They catered the offense to him, and it worked. They catered the offense to Lamar Jackson, and it worked. There's a couple of other quarterbacks I can name that they catered the offense to, and their offense looked more serviceable than the Browns' offense. So is it really all of these quarterbacks? Because again, he's had a multitude of quarterbacks. And why is it that Joe Flacco is the only one that people point to when I just told you 20 minutes ago that they didn't play no other opposing quarterbacks. Trevor Siemian, come on now. Davis Mills, come on now. We got to keep it 100. You can throw Justin Fields in there. You can throw Trevor Lawrence in there, but let's keep it 110. So as you come down off of this draft excitement and the potential, and again, anything can happen. They can make a trade and go get somebody, blah, blah, blah. Anything can happen. But you're probably going to need to rein it back a little bit and think about what you saw in 2023, what you saw in 2024, this past season, and what is the most likely scenario. I don't think this team's problem is defense. This team's problem is offense. And if they can't score, let's just say a low number, if they can't score 20 points a game, and they were last in offense last season, dead last. I know in passing offense, they were dead last. Have they made any moves to suggest that they're going to move that up 10 spots? Now, maybe if their running game, if these rookies come in and the running game ends up being top five, well, that's definitely going to open up the passing game because now you're going to have more one-on-ones. You're going to have more opportunities for play action. So that's possible. That's possible. And if they can get back to 19th in passing, which is the best he's ever had, again, I've said that, then fine. We'll see. We'll see how the rest falls. But if you look at that schedule that's on your screen right there, man, is 17 enough to beat the Bills? Probably not. Is 17 enough to beat the Packers? Probably not. Is 17 enough to beat the Dolphins? Probably not. 17 might be enough to beat the Vikings, but they got Justin Jefferson. So it's probably not going to be enough. Is 17 going to be enough to beat the 49ers? Maybe. Is 17 going to be enough to beat the Titans? That's probably the only one that you can say 17 might be enough because you got a rookie quarterback that's going to be going against an elite defense. Is 17 going to be enough to beat the Ravens? Probably not. The Bengals? Probably not. It might be enough to beat the Steelers because we don't really know what their quarterback play is going to look like. The Bears, you could say the same. 17 ain't going to be enough to beat the Lions. It might be enough to beat the Raiders. It might be enough to beat the Patriots. It might be enough to beat the Jets. But 17 ain't going to cut it. Y'all get the point. So if you stuck with me to the end, really appreciate that. We got a Fanatical L's team, the joint show with everybody on there. I don't know who all is going to be on there, but yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and end it on that. Again, shout out to y'all if y'all stuck with me to the end. It's Dog Food Radio. I am your host, Jarrell, and I will see y'all in about 10 minutes.